Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're watching Newcastle Fast FM. This is the Late Show live, and we are here every night throughout Ramadan, inshallah, from midnight onwards. We are going to be talking about different topics. We have our co-host with us for tonight, Brother Jamal Richard. Assalamu alaikum, Jamal.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Multitasking here. Almost forgot to press the unmute button. Bro, I've been away for a couple of days, but I'm really excited to get involved in today's topic, mashallah. Been away working, and now today I'm going to get educated as always. Because on this show, I might as well just have, I'm in my armchair because I might as well have an armchair because I just do listening more than anything else. But alhamdulillah.
Nice to see you back, man. It's been a while, bro. You missed a few days.
Yeah, apologies, bro.
You missed some good sessions as well, by the way. I have to say.
I know. Yeah, I was keeping tabs, keeping track. So, yeah, alhamdulillah, it's good to be back.
Last session was good with the Germans, yeah.
Yes,
the German dawah kebabs. They were good, man. They were very good, mashallah.
Mashallah. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, looking forward to tonight. Anyway, alhamdulillah.
Tonight's going to be good, inshallah. We've got a special guest, which I'm going to introduce right away.
Yeah.
Is our brother, our ustad, our teacher, our mentor, somebody who has been around in the dawah for some time now, doing some amazing work, I have to say, both for the Muslim community and the non-Muslim community. It's our very own Ustad AbdulWahid Stephenson. Assalamu alaikum. AbdulWahid, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, bro. Now it looks like we've lost him already. How are you, bro? You okay? Yeah, I think his internet is a bit choppy, isn't it?
It's with the lockdown. I think there's a lot of demand on the old Wi-Fi, but we managed to sort of like break through every session, every evening. But alhamdulillah, I'm sure we're going to get AbdulWahid back. Are you back with us now? No, he's gone. He's gone.
No, he's gone. He'll join us back again, inshallah. But while we're waiting for him to come back, we've got. Let me give a little bit of background.
Yes.
On AbdulWahid. Obviously, I've known him for many, many years, and he's been on the dawah scene for such a long time. He's a revert himself, similar to yourself, Jamal. He accepted Islam many, many years ago. He's, in fact, an interesting fact. I don't think he'll mind me sharing it, but I think it's his dad is originally from the northeast, up here in Newcastle, North Tyneside, actually.
Really?
So he's got roots here, bro. He's one of us.
You know what's funny? You said I don't think you'll mind me sharing that. It's almost like it's an embarrassment that he's from the northeast.
No, sometimes some people don't like to share their private info and stuff, but but I've just exposed him completely now that he's part Geordie, as it were. So he's moved to Islam. He's been involved in the dawah for a long time. This is what we're going to discuss with him.
Yeah.
His time he got accepted in Medina University. It's an interesting story, actually, how he got accepted into Medina.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about his time when he came back from Medina. He was the imam of a few masajid, and then he set up his center called Medina College, which we're going to spend some time talking about also.
Inshallah.
So I think he's back. Are we back, AbdulWahid? Can you hear us?
Yeah, we're back. I've connected via the laptop now, so I hope
much better. Alhamdulillah. Much better.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, it should be better, inshallah. So I've just given a very brief intro, bro, about who you are, some of the things that you've been getting up to. Give us, in your own words, bro, give us a little very quick biography about who you are, who's AbdulWahid, what's your background, and share a little bit of something about yourself, bro.
I think alhamdulillah, when did we meet, Abu Tayyib? When did we first meet?
I don't know, it's been a fair few years though, I know that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I think it might have been in Riyadh when we was attending, for example, a knowledge-based seminar of on combating.
2010, wasn't it?
Was that it? 2000?
That was 2010.
Yeah. So alhamdulillah, since I graduated from the Islamic University of Medina, I've been involved in teaching, and the Imam of a Masjid First Croydon ICT. I've been involved in Brixton Mosque as well, teaching there. And then most recently, I set up Medina College, which is a Muslim college teaching Arabic Islamic studies and Quran memorization, as well as tajweed. And alhamdulillah, one of the main things that we have intensive weekend courses with ulama from abroad, professors at Islamic universities around the world. And also what we have as well is we've just launched an online portal where you can study all of the courses that we've held, the Alamiya courses with the Mashaykh, studying classical Islamic textbooks online. So you can just sign up for that. That got launched recently. So inshallah, it's my main thing is teaching and education. Alhamdulillah, as you can tell by the name, I don't know if it's there, but I'm a convert. I converted to Islam when I was like 17 at a young age. And alhamdulillah, since then, it's just been a journey.
So when you became Muslim and you started this journey, so the journey that you've been on, tell us a little bit about why why is it so important to seek knowledge? Why did you pursue this path of knowledge? So many things you could have done, but you pursued the path of seeking knowledge. Why Medina University as well? So give us a little bit of background on your journey to Medina before you got there. Looks like we lost him again.
Well, that's a shame. That's interesting, though. You said a revert since 17.
17 years old. How old were you, bro, Jamal?
Oh, I don't know. Must have been about, 25. It's too long ago to remember, bro. Can't you tell? You ask me these questions like that. Yeah, no, it was a long time actually. But I think maybe about 25. But what's going to be very interesting, especially with the topic tonight as well, AT, is the fact that you have people who are becoming Muslims at a young age, right? And many of the reverts just do their deen. They just fulfill their requirements. They do a little bit of seeking knowledge, but then you have that that select few, if you like, that really go the distance and take it, which is really wonderful, mashallah. Like speaking Arabic fluently, so much knowledge as well. So it's really nice. So that's why when the Ustad comes back, inshallah, we can hear his story, and I'm really interested to find out exactly what it was that gave him that push. Usually it's like having a nice group or collective around you, isn't it, where you get encouraged, and that usually helps, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It comes back to the hadith about companionship and having the right brothers around you, especially when you're a new Muslim. And this is one of the things that we always focus on up here in IDC as well. We try to make sure that there's good companionship for the new Muslims, that there's good company around them to help support them in their journey, to help them grow and get the right knowledge from the beginning, basically. So it's going to be interesting. I think we've got him back. So AbdulWahid, did you get the question that I asked you, or do I need to repeat it?
About this, can you repeat it again?
Yeah, what led you to pursue your path of seeking knowledge, and why Medina University?
I think when I became Muslim, alhamdulillah, I became Muslim in the path of knowledge, or journeying to find the truth and to know, for example, what the purpose of life is, to know why we're here, what's going to happen when we die. So even my journey to Islam was a journey based upon reading and discovering, and seeking. So I guess that just continues, if I'm going to be honest with you. And one of the things that obviously had an impact is obviously knowing that it's based upon, you worship Allah based upon knowledge. Otherwise, if you worship Allah based upon ignorantly, you're going to be, so worship has to be based upon knowledge. You have to know, for example, who you're worshipping. You have to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you. You have to know, for example, where you're going to be going, so what the objective is. And it's like anything else you want to do, if it's a task, or if it's a job, or if it's any vision that you have, or any objective that you want to meet, you have to have, you can achieve it. And so I guess that's what got me to wanting to study in Islamic University of Medina. So what happened was there was this 2-week conference up in Glasgow.
Interesting story as well,
Yeah.
isn't it? The way that you got accepted into Medina University.
Yeah, so I think the cutoff age is 25 for application. So I went as kind of like a mature student after I finished my degree in the UK. So I applied. The first year I didn't get accepted, and all the brothers that I was with got accepted. So I went with a group of brothers to Glasgow. We spent 2 nights in the mosque, sleeping in the musalla, eating biryani for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, where we reward our hosts. And we were just basically studying in the daytime, even chilling out. So the first year, a group of the brothers got accepted: Zulfikar, Ma'ariyah, Faisal, some of the other brothers, Abdullah from Manchester. And I thought I was accepted, to be honest with you, because that year I also went on Hajj. And I went to the Jamia, I found out, have I been accepted? I applied. I saw one of the teachers that came over, and they were like, yeah, you're accepted. So I'm waiting just for the letter to drop through the post saying you've been accepted. So when everyone's name got accepted and my mum wasn't there, I'm like, okay. But alhamdulillah, you have a plan. Allah has a better plan for you. If I'd been accepted that year, I wouldn't have finished my degree in the UK, because I was in my second year then. So I went and I applied again, and I got accepted the year afterwards. And one of the important lessons there is to keep trying and not to give up on what it is that you want to. Determination, obviously. Everyone knows if you've got a vision, you can see it, then you have to pursue it. You have to keep pursuing it and keep pursuing it. You have to have determination to was not going to reach it.
What was it that made you want it so badly?
Again, it's just, I think there was 2 things. Number one was to live in a Muslim country. At that, when you're young, fresh on Islam, you're like, I need to make hijrah. This hijrah vibe was there. Do you get what I mean? Everyone's had that. You've gone through that phase. Yeah, hijrah. I'm gonna move to a Muslim country. They're gonna accept me with open arms, and we're gonna be one big happy Muslim family type of thing. So there was that aspect of it, that hijrah that you want to make, and the other aspect was, again, just the seeking knowledge. I think if I'm going to be honest with you, what had an impact was a community that I was from. So alhamdulillah, the community I was from, Brixton Masjid, that run on Masjid Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah is a giant. He's a giant of knowledge. So, and the masjid itself attached people to knowledge. They used to have yearly conferences, like they still do in Birmingham and all around. They used to host the mashaykh. So there was that buzz, isn't it? This buzz. Oh, we've got a conference coming up. There's knowledge. So this half of it's that buzz of knowledge, and okay, this is what I want to do, because this is where all the value is, seeking knowledge, the virtue of knowledge. So that was it. And the other was hijrah, isn't it? So it's like knowledge and hijrah, basically. So the community had a big impact, and I can't overemphasize the importance of a community like the one, for example, that Abu Tayyib set up in Newcastle, like the ones that you're involved in as well, Jamal, where it's a community based upon brotherhood and knowledge, seeking knowledge together, going out together, socializing together, that type of close-knit, I think that's really important for a new Muslim and for a newly practicing Muslim.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We were just mentioning that, Jamal, weren't we, about having the right companionship, especially from the beginning of when you're a new Muslim. What's interesting, AbdulWahid, Medina has become really, it's a renowned university. It's a prestigious university of learning Islam. Around, you have students from all over the globe who go there to learn about their religion, and then they go back and teach it to their communities. They start giving dawah back in their communities when they graduate and stuff. Share some stories that you had in Medina, some of the more interesting stories that you think that people would like to hear about Medina University.
You know what? My time at Medina is quite a long time ago. I think now it's changed a lot. The younger brothers that are now there or just graduating, they've got, I think, up to date stories. But my stories are like, I feel a bit old now. I feel like my stories are like 15 years old, 20 years old. They're not going to be, no one's interested in them anymore. And plus, alhamdulillah, I mean, I think the main thing about studying in Medina is, specifically Medina, is the Prophet's Masjid. So not only are you in the daytime, you're studying, for example, the Arabic language, you're studying Islamic sciences. And some of those teachers are there. For example, you have the likes of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Abad that was teaching in the Jamia as well. You have the Mudir time of Sheikh Saleh Al-Ubud. You have, you know, the scholars themselves who are in there, Sheikh Hamdan Hadid Madkhali, all the other scholars are there, Sheikh Ali Tuwajiri, the list goes on and on. And then also, but in the evening, you know, the students, they spend their time in Masjid al-Nabawi, in the Prophet's Masjid, you know, either in Halaqat al-Quran, or even if it's just sitting down with their friends talking, to be honest with you, they're not necessarily involved in lessons, but they're still in the Prophet's Masjid, you know, with Maghrib and Isha, you know. So, and then weekends are weekends, you know, and then there's obviously there's the summers in Jeddah, teaching English as a, you know, chilling out with your family, going to the beach. So there's a family aspect, there's a knowledge aspect. I think this was really key, you know, when it comes to, you know, so I think there's loads of stories, but I think it's best to leave those to the brothers that are recently there. They've got a lot of enthusiasm. And
because you what year were you in Medina again? What year was it that you started?
I was there from 2002 to 2008.
That's interesting, because I originally applied for Medina University back in 1999 and 2000. Unfortunately, didn't get accepted, but it's that's when I applied. And one of the things that was mentioned to me was that when you go there, you know, a lot of the students, the older students, they would tell us this, that when you go there, expect a culture change, expect a bit of a culture shock when you go there. It's not like here in the UK, it's not like university, so be prepared for that. It's a very different experience, if you like. What are some of the advice that you would give to those who are thinking of going there to study? What advice would you give them before they go?
I mean, everything you said is true with regards to it being a different type of culture, and I think what happens is you end up going over with this kind of, you know, this bias, and it's in, but you can't do anything about it. It's kind of socially conditioned in you that the way that we do things is always the right way of doing things. So when you go somewhere and you find, for example, people generally, you know, they might be, you know, saying hurry up a lot, or for example, their culture is to push in, as an example, in a queue. You know, they don't have British culture, gentlemanly culture, is it, generally speaking, or stuff like that. Over there, people, they'll push in, and that's almost their culture, for want of a better word. So you end up getting in fights with people based upon cultural differences. Not that pushing in is acceptable Islamically. We're talking about culturally. We're not talking about Islamically. So that has to be borne in mind. You know, sometimes you think, okay, you go there as a Muslim thinking this is Saudi, everyone's Islamic, everyone's on Deen. A guy with the lehiyah, he's religious and practicing. No, not necessarily. He can push in and he can rip you off, and he can, for example, cheat you in a taxi fare and stuff like that if he sees you as a foreigner. So you might go there thinking, like, especially if you were young, you're young, a bit naive, you might think that, you know, how could he do that type of thing? He's a Muslim and I'm a Muslim. No, first of all, you're dealing with people based upon their culture. So you have to understand that. And I remember one incident, I think it was some of the things which are kind of like cultural. Like, so for example, you might, you know, over here in the UK, you know, customers are always right type of thing. Yeah. So if you go to a restaurant and they bring the food and it's something's wrong with you, like, look, that's I'm not having that. I don't want that. Take that back. It's not, you know, you can be a bit fussy. It's a bit of a British thing, isn't it? You can be a bit fussy, or a bit of an English thing, or, you know, acceptable here. So what happens is, I remember once we was in, I think it was Edith's on top of that. It was in Kudu. Kudu is the place where all the British foreigners went for after the Eid Salat. They all went there to sit down and have their breakfast with their families, the family brothers, right? So I remember one brother, he must have got served like his fry up, the breakfast meal, and he's got toast. And the toast is not toasted properly. So he's like, you know, he toast it properly. So the guy just wants to take away the bread. He goes, but now you're going to leave the rest of my food cold. So what he's expecting the guy to do is to remake the whole thing and toast it properly. Okay, over there, as you know, it's a worker working. Now he's not going to throw away a whole plate of food. If he does, that might come out of his pocket. And even if it doesn't, he can't see the sense of it either. What, because what do you mean your toast isn't toasted enough? What type of, it's bread at the end of the day, butter and eat it. You know what I mean? So there's those type of things where you're used to something in the UK. You go over there and you try to apply, you know, you kind of like, you know, bring that culture and expect it to fit there, and it doesn't fit. So you have these type of cultural clashes. And then there's other stuff to do, for example, you know, how you're dealt with when it comes to Bukhara culture, you know, so the bureaucracy, that's another one, for example. So when you're in the UK, you're kind of used to kind of everything being dealt with in a kind of timely manner, supposedly. You see what I mean? You know, you put an application form, you get a reply. Not you get sent back and come back and come back and come back again until next week. You know, so these type of things, I think if you go there knowing that this is part of the culture, this is how they do things, and there's no right or wrong way, there's how they do things here and there's how they do things there. I remember once, just a quick one, I was dealing with a court case for somebody, and I went to the mahkama, the courthouse, and it's like, okay, I wanted to go there early because I had Jamia on the day, so I go there for 8 o'clock. I'm knocking the door's locked, but it's working hours, isn't it? But you have to accept that obviously culturally they go to work, and the first half an hour is them sitting and eating their breakfast with their mates, reading the newspaper and talking. They're not open for work. They're at work, but they're not open for work, basically. And that's just a culture. It might have changed now, but that was a culture back then. It was acceptable. You know, obviously there's liberties, and then there's obviously, you know, the culture. So I'm then knocking the door. The guy opens up. He looks at me funny, and he goes like, "What do you want?" I goes, "I've got paperwork." He goes, "Come back in half an hour." I goes, "No, it's 8 o'clock. You're supposed to be open," type of thing. You know, if it says 8 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock. Open the door. And his mates at the back looking over. They're sitting down eating their breakfast, food or whatever it is they're eating on the, you know, sitting down having bread and food on the floor. But again, these are type of things where if you don't acknowledge the different cultures, you're going to kind of get into arguments, thinking that you're right, but in reality, you're not. And why I mean that you're not right is because what you're doing is you're applying the culture that you're used to in a place where the culture is different. You know, and this is and this again, all of this is really important. Why I'm mentioning it, because when it comes to marriage as well, in the UK, wherever you are, even as, for example, as British as we all are, for example, being raised in the UK, our backgrounds are not English. So we have culture. You see what I'm saying? And there's culture outside of Islam. We have the culture that we were brought up with, right? And that culture sometimes is in line with Islam. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's not in line, and it's not in line. So there's nothing wrong with it. We have two people that come back from different cultural backgrounds now, and they are gonna believe that it's their culture is right. It's not Islamic now. We're not talking about something which goes against Islam or something which is in line with Islam. It's something which is in the middle, neutral. Islam doesn't say yes, Islam doesn't say no. In this regard, there's a danger when two people come together from different cultures if they're not going to if they're going to come in thinking that their culture is the right one and the other one's the wrong one. You're going to end up with a situation where there's unnecessary tension in a marriage that can cause conflict, basically. So it's important to understand the role of culture in relationships and how to navigate, and when its culture is acceptable, when it's not acceptable, and that culture in and of itself there's no right one or wrong one unless you're saying it's with the Quran or against it. It's just culture. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's, I think, really important when a person is going to the Islamic university, or they're going into a workplace, or they're going into a relationship or marriage. It's communication, you know, and how you negotiate those things.
I find we won't bother talking about the Jawazat and the experiences at the Jawazat office, AbdulWahid, because that's another discussion in and of itself. Yeah, but you know, in terms of and you know what I mean by that. Yeah, so but the in terms of culture and stuff, I think it's interesting because, you know, when I first started practicing the Deen many years ago in the 90s. One of the things that especially when we found the Sunnah, one of the things that we did was we wanted to run away from our cultures and just follow the Quran and the Sunnah, and then ignore everything that is from the cultural background. And, you know, we just have one brotherhood and we have one Islam and we have one so on and so forth. But we don't realize that actually culture does play some part. It's not the main part of our lifestyles, but it does have some significance, I guess. It's like you said, some parts of the culture are good and some are not so good. Some are actually part of Islam or cross over with Islam or intertwined with Islam, if you like, and some which is just contradictory to Islam. So there's a number of things I think that you've highlighted there, which is very important. But definitely people need to be a bit more open-minded when they go there. And if they want to live there in Saudi, you have to be very open-minded and understand that people do things in different ways that you might not be used to.
Absolutely, AT. I mean, obviously, AbdulWahid, as you mentioned about the queuing element of when you go to Saudi, and that's one of the, you know, the queuing, or, you know, even just being barged and pushed and stuff like that. And you do need to have a level of understanding. But even then, you know, obviously, it's very difficult to kind of get your head around it. And as you mentioned, even, you know, just expecting for a service, and it's just like, you know, you're the odd person out, thinking like, what's the matter with you? Don't you understand? Just go and sit down and wait. Infuriating and frustrating, but subhanAllah, you know.
Yeah, I think it is frustrating, 100%, and it's understandable when people get annoyed and get angry, because it's like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
You know, in one case, I went to an office to visit someone, so he's not there, and so you know, everyone's got like a secretary, isn't it? If you're going to visit the mudir or the wherever he is, he's got a secretary. So I'm like, okay, he goes, oh, wait, and that's what he says. They wait for him. So when you say wait, you think he's coming back, isn't it? You understand? Wait, that he'll be back in sometime shortly, 20 minutes, you know, half an hour the longest. So you sit there, I waited half an hour, and then I'm like, okay, what's going on? Where is he? He says, oh, wait, you know, just wait. He doesn't say he's not coming back, but he also doesn't say he's coming back. This is the key. So what you're doing is he's basically, I don't know if he's covering for the guy or if he just doesn't know himself, but the guy's gone out to do something and he hasn't come back. So I'm sitting there waiting for like an hour until it's now coming up close to, I think, Asr time, because it was after Dhuhr that we went. And you know when it's come close to Asr that my man's not coming back, because he's obviously, he's the one who finishes at 2 o'clock anyway. So I'm like, why have you told me to wait? He goes, I'll come back tomorrow. I'm like, what do you mean come back tomorrow? Have you just told me to wait for an hour and a half and I tell him to come back tomorrow? What type of nonsense is that? You know, you should have told me that you don't think he's coming back. Let me go home and I'll come back tomorrow, and I don't have to wait an hour and a half, 2 hours. You know, but like you said, yeah, it can be frustrating, and you lose your cool and you get angry and then you have an argument and then you become the best.
That's for sure. You need to have a level of patience. And I also think, I don't know if you agree with me as well on this or not, but I think the heat has to play a part in it as well, why people get angry real quick as well, you know. I mean, I'm hot-blooded anyway, right? And when I was over there, the heat made me even more angry usually, right? And frustrated and stuff like that. And then you got people who are acting up, and then you just feel like backhanding everybody in the line, sort of thing, you know. So it's one of those, I think that you definitely have to have a level of patience when you're out there, that's for sure.
You know, it made me think of something as well. I don't know if it's because in the Arabic, but you know, in England we say like back in 5 minutes. Yeah. In Arabic, I mean, it says back after 5 minutes or something like that, right? That could mean anything, isn't it? Back after 5 minutes. You could be sitting there for 2 hours. Yeah, back after 5 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I said after 5 minutes. I didn't tell you in 5 minutes.
Specify, yeah. Okay, I've got another question for you. Yeah? It's linked to one of the questions that are going to come up as well. What are some of the basic principles that that you would advise when people want to study the Deen? What are some of the foundations that people need to know when studying the Deen?
When it comes to studying, you know, the most important thing is to understand that it's a lifelong pursuit. So don't be hasty. Don't be hasty in studying. So for example, you know, you want to finish and you think you're going to finish everything in a week, in 2 weeks, in 1 month, in 1 year, in 2 years. No, you're going to always be learning more, discovering more, uncovering more. For example, the meaning of, you know, some verses of the Quran or some ahadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you're in it for up until you die, basically. Like I said, from the cradle to the grave, isn't it? You're from the cradle to the grave. You're worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not necessarily about you know, a time. That's the first thing. The second thing is also as well, the most important thing is it's not knowledge for knowledge's sake. We don't study theory for the sake of theory. It's knowledge to practice. So if you're not practicing, you're not worshiping Allah. It's not improving your character. It's not improving how's your knowledge benefiting you? You have to ask yourself. The benefit of knowledge is to act. The fruits of knowledge is action, and a tree without fruits is non-beneficial. This is what I mean. So if you have the knowledge but you don't have the actions, then you need to question your intention. You need to make tazkiyah of your nafs. You need to, you know, review yourself. So the point is to learn so you can act upon it. And the third thing is obviously all of it is from tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of it's tawfiq. So you always have to be, you know, seeking, you know, you always have to have humility, because no matter how much knowledge you have, you're not special. This is, I think, important. No matter how much knowledge you have, you're not better. That doesn't make you better than anyone else. For example, if you start to consider yourself better than people as a result of your knowledge, you're in a precarious position. You know, knowledge is humbling. It's supposed to make you have more humility. Which is why, you know, the scholars, when they sign their books and stuff like that, you say faqir ila Allah. They say the one that's in need of Allah, the one that's poor. The more knowledge they have, the more they realize how impoverished they are with regards to their need for Allah's mercy, their need for Allah's forgiveness, their need. Do you see what I mean? So I think those are three important things. I'd say patience and actions, as well as you know, understanding that, you know, knowledge. You need to have humility. You're in need of Allah's tawfiq all the time in everything that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a follow-on question from one of the viewers, Muslim BB. He asks, what's the best thing to start with when you want to learn Islam? Some say just memorize the Quran or tafsir first. Would you agree?
When it comes to beginning to study, then learning an Arabic language and memorizing Quran is something which is there because you need it for the salah. So you can't pray without Arabic, without knowing the Arabic and without memorizing verses of the Quran. So you have to memorize. But as for you, because you're unable to understand at that point, you need to learn the Deen because it's applicable. It's not theory, like I said. So how do you apply it if you don't understand what you're reading? So you need to study subjects. So the first subject and the two main subjects that every single Muslim has to study, he's not excused for not knowing, is his belief and how to worship Allah. Those two things. That's for everyone. So, for example, what Allah wants from you, what's obligatory pertaining to the salah, what's obligatory pertaining to zakat if you've got money, what's obligatory in fasting, things that for the fast, all these things, you have to learn these. And you can't wait until you know the Arabic language to study it. So that being the case, you have to study topics, fiqh and tawheed, those two topics primarily. And there's loads of different books on tawheed that you can read, which are beneficial, loads of different books on fiqh, which you can read. But the main thing is you can't take your book as your guide. You mentioned something, and this is something that we're all involved in, I think, here, is a type of coaching, mentorship, trying to help people develop themselves and to improve themselves. You know, so you always need to have a mentor or a teacher, you know, that's going to guide you through the mistakes, your misunderstandings. So, you know, it's not this or that, it's both of them. They're mutually comprehensive, they mutually complement each other, but you need a teacher in all cases. Someone who's older, someone that's also knowledgeable, experienced in the Deen, someone that's balanced, importantly, you know, someone that understands the worship balance. He's able to balance between his Deen and his dunya, you know, so he's not going to, you know, tell you not to work because it's free mixing, and then you're going to be on the, you know, signing on as if that's what Islam wants from you. You understand? So, you know, when we speak about knowledge and education, it's not just knowledge of the Deen, it's knowledge of the dunya as well, because you're living in the dunya, and, you know, certain things make it difficult to worship Allah or make it harder. If a person's having to worry about, for example, how he's going to earn a living, where he's living, it makes it harder for him to worship Allah. These are from the, you know, so a person has to combine between these two things.
And it's interesting you say that, because, you know, how if somebody might ask after that, well, how do we know which scholars to learn from? How do we know which teachers we should take? Because it's like you said, it's not just from reading books. There are so many things you learn from a scholar that you wouldn't get in books, like akhlaq and mannerisms, like you know, how behaviors and how they treat each other and relationships and stuff like that. So what advice would you give to somebody? What constitutes a scholar? And number two, which scholars to listen to? How would somebody know to distinguish? Because there's so many people who claim to be scholars.
With regards to this issue, especially in the UK, it's a very sensitive issue, because it's not like it's a Muslim country where you kind of have the awqaf and they kind of direct they appoint the mufti. So this guy's a mufti because he's been appointed by the religious body, so they recognize him as a person of knowledge for fatwa, for example. We don't have that in the UK, and that can be problematic, because now there's loads of shubahat. This person saying he's a scholar and he's teaching people misguidance, and another person saying he's a scholar and he's just about reached 20 and he's only read one book in Arabic, and the rest of his books he's read in English, for example. You know, so you have that problem, and to be honest with you, it's an issue which is difficult to navigate. I mean, one of the first book I translated was to address this issue, which is a book on usul al-fiqh for the Muslim who's not mujtahid. And what it addresses this topic. Who do you ask questions to? What do you need to know of the rulings for you to practice your religion? And if you have two muftis that have a different opinion, which one do you follow and stuff like that? That was key, I think, for the UK, where you don't have, for example, a central religious authority like you have in Muslim countries. But generally speaking, as a principle, the first thing is the sources of revelation is Quran and Sunnah, and every statement that a person makes that says that this is ibadah, this is pleasing to Allah, this is Sunnah, it needs to be based upon evidence from the Quran and from the Sunnah. So it has to be evidence based. That's the first thing. Okay, the second thing is the understanding of that evidence. Okay, someone says this is an ayah and this is proof on evidence for a particular action. Okay, who understood by who? That your own application. The scholars of fiqh used to say it's impermissible for an ami, which is a lay person, to, if he finds Sahih al-Bukhari, to read it and apply his own understanding to it. He's not allowed to pick up Sahih al-Bukhari and read it for himself because he's going to apply his own understanding. Means it needs to be taught because he's not going to make istidlal properly. So the second question, okay, this is the evidence. You mentioned the ayah, you mentioned hadith. Okay, on whose understanding? Your own understanding? Name the person who it is. So you can see. So if, for example, they attribute it back to the Sahaba, the Salaf, the Khulafa Rashidin, then you can say, okay, yeah, this is correct now. Why? Because they understood the revelation. They attribute it back to the four Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, they say, okay, this is i.e. there's a silsila. There's a chain of scholarship, teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student, all the way up to today. Doesn't end. So there has to be a connection between a teacher and a student that goes back to the Salaf, the Sahaba. So those are the three general things that you can look at. With regards to this opening up Bukhari, an example of today that we find, for example, amongst even for example, the students of knowledge or the ones that attribute themselves to knowledge, is that they might, for example, search for a mas'ala on Islam Q&A, for example, and that's a fatwa specific to a person. The Shaykh gave it. They take that fatwa and they make analogy with it and apply it to their own situation or to another situation that they're refuting or giving a fatwa to somebody else. This is the same as picking up Bukhari and reading it according to your own understanding. That's the danger. Right?
Quite common, actually. If I'm honest, we see that quite a lot.
It happens a lot, and that's why I mentioned it, because it happens a lot that they say, okay, I read on Islam Q&A this, or this is what it says on Q&A and this, and then they make an analogy. The danger comes when they start to make the analogy. They're not applying that fatwa specifically on that specific case. They're taking that to make an analogy on their instance or on another instance that they know, and they're going to give a fatwa based upon it. Okay, in the first place, they're not qualified to give the fatwa, and they're not making just a straight knuckle of that fatwa for somebody else. You understand? So they
general, something which is specific for somebody, they're making it general. Because, for example, that fatwa could be very specific for a particular culture or a country or a group of people or an individual, and they're trying to make it a general fatwa for them living in a completely different environment. Yeah.
And on top of that, they haven't even understood it properly. They've made analogy with it on it's a different mas'ala sometimes, completely. It's not even the same mas'ala. It's not even the same issue that they've applied it to, and it happens. I mean, we're all guilty of it at some point, but the problem is if you don't know the istidlal or how that's proof, that mas'ala, you're unable to apply it anywhere else.
Yeah, very true. There's another comment here by Hassan Tariq. Do you think it's still possible to study Islam without going to an Islamic university like Medina University?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's 100% possible to study Islam without going to Islamic University of Medina. If it wasn't, how would you be able to be a practicing or a person that's worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly? So it's definitely possible to become, for example, a student of knowledge at a level where you're able to kind of understand the books of tafsir and understand how they the words, the terminology which is used, the jargon which is used. That's also possible as well, but it just takes a lot of effort. Why does it take a lot of effort? Because you've got more distractions. So you have to have your determination has to be stronger. Your aspiration has to be higher, because the society doesn't facilitate for you to spend your time doing that unless someone's sponsoring you, someone's supporting you, you know. So it's definitely possible. I mean, that's part of the reason of trying to set up Medina College, to be honest with you, is to give people an opportunity that maybe they're beyond the age of the Jamia, but they still have the aspiration to, you know, be with
study
knowledge, to study, to continue studying, to be with knowledge, to be still involved in knowledge. You know, I remember in the halaqat of Sheikh Abdullah Muslim Al-Abad, you got like 200 people, 300 people maybe, you know, and they've been studying with him for like 10 years, 15 years, and stuff like this, hadith, from a long time we're talking about. And they're not students of knowledge. The students of knowledge are like the 20 people that are close to him, the young brothers that you see that are close, they've got the book, everyone's got the book, everyone's taking notes, but the students of knowledge are a few. The rest, they're there to do what? To learn their religion, to be amongst in the circles of knowledge, to get the benefit of being in the circle of knowledge, the barakah of being in the circle of knowledge, you know, to benefit from the sheikh's akhlaq, from his answers, from his fatawa, to be able to teach their family. Because remember, as a man, you've got an obligation. You know, what? Don't. There's a statement of, I think it's Umar ibn Khattab. He says, "Ta'allamu qabla an tasawwudu." Seek knowledge before you become. And they speak about this word tasawwud. What it means before you become sayyidul qawm. Like before you become a person that people look to, because now you have people you're responsible for, your community, your family members, your children. When you've got children that are 15, 16, 17, 18, come to you and they expect you to know the Deen. You know, they're going to come to you at that age about marriage, about different things, questions. So everyone needs to have their portion of knowledge, you know, so that, and to kind of maintain it, you know, just for, even if it's just for the battle of the circle of knowledge.
I mean, obviously, we promote Medina College. We'd recommend everybody to go to the website. You've got your new education portal online. We recommend, if you can, go to the college itself. Give out the web link in a moment, AbdulWahid, so people can go and check out what you have to offer. But you know, there's apart from Medina College, there are so many other institutes and organizations that are claiming, well, they're teaching Islam on different levels. You know, how do you, I guess the question I'm going to ask is, just for clarity for people out there who are watching this, how would someone know what knowledge to seek, which institutions to go to, which organizations to learn from? There's too many to name here tonight, but what would you advise to someone who wants to start this path, who can't go abroad to study, who can't go to Islamic universities in different countries? Obviously, Medina College is one of them that they can go to, but which other ones would you recommend people go to? Any particular websites or any other institutes that you would recommend, and which ones to avoid as well? I think that's important for people to know also, because there's a lot of confusion out there.
I mean, one thing I don't want to do is to be like specific and start to mention names of institutes. Generally speaking, go there, don't go there. But what I will say is, you need to, if you understand the principles, okay, it's like, for example, and this is a method of teaching, and it's important because I learned this as well from, you know, you take this from the Mashaykh themselves. I remember once I asked one of the Mashaykh a question, and he replied, you know what he replied? He says, "Do you want the juice or the juicer?" What do you want? The juice? Okay, I'll give you juice. You have to come back to me again for more juice. Every time you want to drink, you have to come back and ask me again, because after you can. But if you've got the juicer, you've got the means to produce the juice. You don't have to come back to me anymore. I left you independent, and that should be the purpose of any type of message or lesson or information or college even. That they're not keeping you there. They're trying to give you the tools so that you can become independent in your studying and in your learning. Independent meaning you've got the principles and you can apply the principles. So, like I said, if you go back to the principles, look at the principles of the college. Okay, are they basing their curriculum and their teaching based upon, for example, a new kind of liberal type of understanding of Islam that fits within their community, and they're not making reference back to the Sahaba or the Tabi'in or the Imam. That's one. Or is the principle based upon the text has to be understood according to our intellect, and if it goes against our intellect, then we can't apply the text and we make isqat of it. We don't utilize it at all. You know, what's their methodology basically? What's their methodology or the theoretical framework in understanding the revelation, the wahi? If their framework and their methodology is based upon this is divine, this is revelation from Allah, this is wahi sent down, and it's haqq, all of it, and we have to apply it, understand it, don't understand it. For example, there's wisdom in it whether we comprehend it or not. This is a hadith, it's authentic, it's wahi, it's from Allah. Okay, you know, we have to apply it. Okay, and those two, so that's a principle, for example, that you make taslim of the nusus. You accept the text, whether it's in line with your own biases or not. You accept the text. That's one principle. Another principle, for example, is interpretation of the text. So as long as you give someone the principles, then inshallah they're able to any new institute that opens, let alone the ones that already exist, they're able to understand whether they should study there or not. You know, and that, again, go back to the book that I translated. It's inshallah, I'll send you a copy of the PDF. Maybe we can share it with some of the viewers. It covers a lot of these issues. Another issue, for example, okay, where do they get their recommendation from? There's obviously the hadith, it mentions, for example, that you're going to find people that appoint themselves as teachers, they're young in age, and they misguide and stuff like this. So you have to look at, there's certain principles you can apply. Okay, what references have they got? What recommendations? What from other scholars, other institutes that are that you recognize, that you recommend, for example, stuff like that. So it's better to have the principles than it is to mention them specifically.
You know, there is a lot of confusion out there. There's this, even nowadays, there's a big push for, you know, especially in the UK, a British Islam, right? Or a British understanding of Islam, which really is compromising sometimes in many cases compromises the foundations of our religion, of our deen, right? And there's a very liberal interpretation of things, or even rejecting certain authentic hadith and things like that. So I think the reason I'm asking that is because of this confusion that's out there. And you've answered it quite well, actually, in terms of the principles that we need to abide by when we are looking about who we're going to take our knowledge from. And this is something, and as you know, seeking knowledge is a form of ibadah, right? So we have to be very careful about where we take our knowledge from, because this is your deen that we're talking about. It's not something which should be taken lightly.
100%. I mean, especially in big issues. So there's principles as well. So for example, when it comes to nawazil, or issues which are contemporary issues which are big, they affect not just you, but they affect the ummah. These issues, you don't take them from anyone that's, for example, you know, freshly out of the jamia. They've just been there for 1 year. They've just graduated 1 year ago, and that's it. You know what I mean? These issues, you go back to the elders of the scholars, of the students of knowledge. Why? Because they've got the experience and they've lived it longer. They've been given down and studied longer, so they've got more experience. So there's principles. So for example, in the nawazil, you don't go back to the young. If a young person, he jumps up and he starts speaking about, for example, issues on voting, or issues, for example, on, you know, issues that affect, you're talking about every Muslim in the UK, you know, student loans, for example, or any issue which is not just for one person, but it's for a whole, all the Muslims, British Muslims, for want of a better word. Then these issues, they need to come from those that are senior in knowledge. As for one-to-one issues, you come and, you know, say, oh, you know, I got married and this is how the marriage was done, and I'm not sure. It affects just you, then that's different. That's a different matter. A student of knowledge that's grounded, he can help you. But when it comes to nawazil, big issues, no, it has to go to senior students of knowledge, or the scholars, you know, and stuff like that. So there's principles. The point is if a person has the principles, he's able to navigate it in all of the situations. So he doesn't have to ask for every new situation, because he's got a principle that applies to all of them. So when a new situation comes, a new institute, or he's able to weigh it up himself. This is the point. I think this is what our job should be as teachers or mentors or coaches or whatever, we need to give people something that they makes them independent of us. They don't have to depend on us anymore. They're able to kind of navigate, and they come back when they need to.
Yeah, just
it is one of the leadership when you're able to empower somebody that they're not in need of you anymore, and they excel beyond what you can offer. It's one of the principles of good leadership, actually. Sorry, Jamal, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I mean, it just makes me think about, you know, you asked a question, AT, about, you know, who do you seek knowledge from and how do you find the right people? You know, and there'll be many times and many cases where someone has gone to a gathering, for example, and they're listening to someone, and everything they say initially, it all sounds sahih, it all seems to be fine, and then after a while, you start to hear some interesting and unusual things starting to creep in. And it's very, very dangerous, because before you know it, you might find yourself completely in the wrong group, and all this stuff would have just seeped in, and, like, you know, obviously a lot of falsehood and and even some things are you know, absolutely obnoxious as well, and erroneous ideas. So you know, how one kind of avoids that, you know, and where they can seek the advice from, I think, you know, obviously that's something which is very important for new Muslims to understand. So I just wanted to just reiterate that again, as you mentioned earlier, AT.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. I think it's important.
You know, Sheikh, I've got a question. I mean, you must have seen a lot of people coming, seeking knowledge and going. Do you think there is a phenomenon that happens when someone seeks knowledge? There's a few people who automatically they become almost like arrogant and like it's, you know, giving people rulings, speaking against people. Is this like a phenomenon that happens like throughout time, even in, say, like academic studies and stuff, that there's a small chunk of people, it affects them in a negative way?
Yeah, I think that's just from two things: from youth immaturity, as well as one of the kind of phases of acquiring knowledge. You know, so for example, it's kind of like a pretender. There's a brother, Abu Salam, a graduate of the Jamia as well, mashallah tabarakallah. He's got a very nice lecture on this topic, methodology of seeking knowledge, and he speaks about the stages. So he's got one stage which is called the pretender. So it's a person that, you know, he thinks he's got knowledge, but in reality he's pretending. He's not a proper student. He's not grounded. He's not firmly grounded. So he's up there, for example, talking like as if he's you know, the Sheikh al-Britannia or something like that, in dishing out rulings, in dishing out tabdi' of people, and, you know, being judgmental, and, you know, there's only one view. But in reality, he's at a phase of immaturity in his acquisition of knowledge. So what I'll do, I'd recommend anyone to go look that up. Abu Salama, he's got an institute called Ibn Sabil Institute. It's online, and he mentions these phases. But yeah, it happens, and I guess it happens to everyone that's young, that's seeking knowledge and got that enthusiasm. A lot of it's based upon zeal and enthusiasm, so it's hard to criticize it. So you kind of make you try to direct and hope they come out the other side unscathed without having caused too much damage along the way, you know, whether it's in families or communities and stuff like that, you know.
We all went through that phase as well, to be back in the 90s. It was something that was almost the norm, I guess, because and alhamdulillah, there wasn't social media at that time, so a lot of the mistakes we made weren't recorded as well. But I think a lot of people do go through that in their youth, that's for sure. But yeah, it's a good question. That's actually a very good question. There's an interesting story that one of the brothers, he was telling me. Now, he's from London. I met him, and he traveled across Africa. He went to Yemen to study, and he said, I was with lots of different students from different parts of the world, the Indian students, the Pakistani, the African students. He said, I hated being around the British and the American students. He said, because the other guys were so studious, they just came there, they wanted to learn, and they were focused. But when he was with the British and American students, all they were talking about was, this guy's off it, he's doing this, what's going on here, what's happening there. And he said it was just really, really disheartening. So he just cut off. I didn't really spend much time with them. I'd rather spend time with the students who were from the other countries, because they were very, you know, laser sharp focused on learning the religion, memorizing the Quran, and they didn't have time for any of this stuff. And he said that they were all students. It wasn't like one was a scholar and one was a senior student of knowledge. They were all students, but the mentality of the students was very, very different. That was his personal experience that he shared.
Yeah, I think this is, again, comes back to this culture. So the culture that we have in the, I guess, here or in America as well, because if we look at England's been a small state of a small part of America, for example, just on the other side of the sea, is we have a culture, the media, and freedom of speech, and the freedom to backbite, basically. So what it is if we grow up in a culture of, you know, media and reading about this person said that about that person said about, outside of it being Muslim, I'm talking about generally speaking, non-Muslims. I'm not talking about Muslims in the office, even the work culture, for example. You know, you see people talking about each other behind their back in the office and all this other stuff. You know, if that's how we're brought up, it's to change that. It takes some time because it's habit formations, isn't it? So you're trying to, you're now getting rid of something which is part of your culture, but it's un-Islamic. It's very un-Islamic and damaging. You know, so in a way, I'm not making excuses, but we're just looking at how much of an impact culture has on us. You know, how much of an impact it has on us. You know, for example, generosity. Generosity is an Islamic principle, a trait. The Messenger of Allah was generous. You know, Islam encourages us to be generous, to be kind, to give. The Muslim community is known for being generous and known for being kind. However, as a culture, Britain or British people, generally speaking, are known for being what? Americans are known for being, when it comes to tips, if we talk about tips, for example, Americans tip British people, they're known for what? Not tipping. They're known for being stingy and being mean and stuff like that. So sometimes we have traits which we kind of grew up with, and they're un-Islamic, you know. So removing them, it's not easy and it takes time. That's why we're talking about patience. So it might take, for example, a year, 2 years. It might take 3 years. It depends on how ingrained that culture is within us. But as long as you know and you're striving, then, and you know, for example, the ways to, you know, to change those habits and stuff like that, then inshallah it's gonna happen. I mean, I don't know I don't know who's a revert, convert, but you know, when I first became Muslim, you know, in my head, I'm in the mosque on the first Friday. You know, I'm gonna be praying all the time, and that's in my head. The reality is something completely different. You know, it took me a while to enter the mosque, and it took me a while to give up a lot of the things that I used to do. You get what I mean? It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight.
Everyone's on that journey, on their journey of Islam, so to speak.
Yeah. So you know, with regards to when it comes, and this is why Islam speaks about hiding the thoughts of your brother, not exposing his mistakes and stuff like that. There's so many principles that highlight that are important for us to teach and to apply with each other, so we support each other and lift each other up, as opposed to breaking each other and putting each other down. Islam doesn't tell you to put each other down; it's just to lift each other up, basically. You know, you're supposed to be behind your brother, helping him rather than stepping on him. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. You know, and all of this is Islamic. When you find something that goes against that, you know it's un-Islamic anyway, just because it goes against the maqasid of unity, the objectives of working together, support one another, and stuff like that.
I just want to ask a question about the actual the period of study, especially in places like Medina University. You know, we have brothers who work amongst us who also graduated over the years, and they spoke about the many people who didn't make it through. And you know, I think there must be quite a large number of people who go through that. I mean, do you think that, would you put that down to maybe their niyyah might have been wrong in terms of that, or do you think it is really, really difficult and it just takes a certain breed to get through?
Yeah, I'd go for the second initially. You know, I think education, when it's structured and you have to be attending at 9 o'clock and doing exams and revising for exams, and there's this structure to it, then, and it's over a long period of time, talking about 6 years, 2 years in the Ma'had, 4 years in the Jamia. You know, it takes patience. You know, it takes perseverance, and sometimes, you know, it's just not easy. So even in universities in the UK, the dropout rates are going to be about similar. You can, you know, say for example, for everyone that starts a degree, how many people drop out? You know, so I think there's half of it is the second part, but I do think as well at the same time half of it is the first part, that you know, their intention wasn't for the right reason. So I've had so many students come to me. I've asked for a tazkiyah to apply to go to the Jamia. So they had the enthusiasm, They go there after 6 months, they've left and they've got a job in Riyadh or somewhere.
Wow.
What happened there? You know what I mean? It's not even, we're not talking about, you know, 2.5 years. They haven't pushed themselves.
Yeah.
So the intention wasn't there to study. They might have had the zeal initially, but the determination wasn't there, and that's why it didn't follow through.
Yeah.
And as you all know, the importance of intentions for action is that if you're determined, you have the intention, then you're going to push through with it, basically. So yeah, it can be a bit of both.
Yeah, mashallah, we have some brothers from Latin America who we work quite closely with, and it's what's really beautiful. There's a small sort of clique of these brothers, as Isa will remember as well, because there was a large number who were accepted into Medina University, but only a select handful actually, you know, went the distance and were successful at the end, mashallah. So it's you know, obviously it's really nice to hear that, because we know that it's quite a struggle to get through and to finish. You know, but you know, to meet these brothers and know how their journeys were, and they've met others who just didn't make it, and it wasn't because of bad intention. I think it's just because it was quite difficult and they had family commitments. I think they also said that they were missing their family.
Yeah, that's a huge one. That I guess is also a huge one. So there's, you know, you're in a foreign country, it's strange. You know, especially if you're from a close family, you got family that are, you know, it's difficult to not miss them. And, you know, so yeah, a lot of it's to do with missing family. You know, I remember loads of brothers I know, you know, they went back not because they wanted to, but because of the circumstances that they found themselves in with their family and needing to look after their family and stuff like that. Yeah, so it is difficult. I mean, loads of brothers know it's difficult. And it doesn't help when you're thinking, you know, when you get, for example, to the age of maybe, so imagine you start the jam and you're 18 or 19. Okay, so after 2 years, you're now what, 21? Okay, another year, you're now 22. Okay, now you start to have your head on your shoulders, you know what you kind of want. And then you start to question yourself. Hold on a minute. When I go back to the UK, it's not a Muslim country. I can't walk into a civil servant job. How am I going to earn a living? How am I going to get married? How am I going to look after my wife? These are questions that are valid questions that a person is going to ask themselves. Obviously, you know, you can't, it's not right to say to them, you know, you don't have to work, or your iman is weak. That's not the situation, because it's a valid question that they have, how they're going to earn a living. You know, it's a non-Muslim country they're going back to. If you look at the job or the ratib or the salary of an imam, it's for the amount of hours and expectations that, you know, for whatever reason, it's very low, basically. You know, whatever reason, that's because it used to be important imams from outside, and then they'll be providing their visas and their accommodation, so they're able to pay a low salary, and they give them loads of, in any case, it's not a good salary. So that comes up. So that's also a deciding factor. You know, you reach 23, like, hold on a minute, I've been here for 6 years. If I was in the UK in 6 years, I could have become an architect. I could have done a medicine and become a doctor. I've heard some brothers say, you know, I could have, you know, and this is the type of thing that they start. But when you're at 19, you don't think of it like that. But when you get to that age where you start to think of family and work, it starts to dawn on you, you know, so that also has an impact on people as well. So it is difficult. What you said is definitely 100% true. It's difficult.
Yeah, that's serious. I mean, when you mentioned that as well, obviously, those years that you put into it, I mean, we know that the rewards are going to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you put in and how it will benefit the ummah. But I'm sure, you know, you're right, that would sort of creep in, that you're thinking I could have been a doctor or something like that.
Yeah, it creeps into some of the brothers, and then, you know, some of it comes from shaitan, some of it's like, you know, what you do and sort yourself out, go back to the UK and fix up type of thing, you know. But obviously, you know, alhamdulillah, some people stay, some people don't. You know?
Yeah. I think there's some questions, Jamal. Do you want to put them to the Sheikh, and then we can?
Yeah. There was a couple. I think there's a question which is a little bit off topic, but I think it's still good to answer them. Muslim BB, I know this is off topic, but is it shirk to say Jesus Christ, but you just say it like you would say, "Oh man," or when you're surprised, you don't mean it in your heart at all, but it's just a phrase. And I think,
yes.
And just an extension of that, he says,
so these words.
Yeah, he said also it's saying
go on.
Good luck, shirk. You know, you believe in the qadar, good and bad, but it's just a saying. So he's just talking about people just generally using these terminologies.
Yeah. So the first statement, saying Jesus Christ, as in the place of saying, for example, Subhanallah or something like that, then that's something that is from the alfaz which are manhi an. It's prohibited to say it. Okay, but obviously saying it with intention and saying it as kind of like a phrase which you're used to saying, it's not the same. So it's forbidden, but it's not considered shirk, and it's considered something which is kind of like a laghu fil speech. It's like a speech which is not befitting, and a person should avoid it basically. But it's not taken into account for it. It's not going to be taken into account for that statement. So long as it's like something that comes out. It's not something that he's intending meaningfully. Do you see what I mean? But he just has to train himself to change it with something else. Like you said, instead of saying just go say, "Oh man," or say something else, to train himself to say something else, basically.
The best of it, if you learn to use good terminology like subhanallah, if you're surprised by something, it's much better.
Exactly. Yeah. So replace it with subhanallah, and then it's ibadah you're rewarded for. With regards to good luck, then the good luck obviously it has a number of meanings. But when you're saying it, for example, saying make the most of this opportunity, you're saying it in a way which has a meaning like that, then generally speaking, there's no problem with it. Generally speaking, it's not considered shirk to say. You don't mean luck as in superstitious practices where you believe that a certain action is going to bring about luck. You're not saying good luck, now wear this shoe, this what's it called, horseshoe, whatever it is, or wear this rabbit's foot or whatever. So like good luck, take a rabbit's foot. Good luck, cross your fingers. Good luck, touch wood. Do you get what I mean? As if wood's going to benefit you, as if a rabbit. No, you're just saying, for example, all the best. That's what you're saying. So that's not from the things which are considered shirk, basically. Generally speaking, it's not. And again, if it's something you can avoid it. But sometimes again, some of these things that we hold on to, they're not. Then it's part of your speech which you use amongst each other. It's not like, for example, that's just an example. A young person at school, teenagers, they have their language that they use. Call each other fam. They don't mean family, obviously. Okay, we're gonna do say, oh, don't say fam. That's not the way to speak. Blah. No, they're gonna grow out of it. That's how they speak, because that's how everyone else their age speaks. Do you get what I mean? Not that saying the same as good luck, but what we're saying is that this is terminology. When they mean good luck, because they're gonna say cross your fingers, touch wood, take this lucky clover or whatever it is. That's shirk, obviously, because that's you're attributing to a particular thing. No.
That's a good answer, actually. That's amazing answer. Isa, have you got any questions, bro? Comments that you'd like to add?
No, that was really good. I really enjoyed it. One thing I wanted to add, the Sheikh was mentioning about the teacher. I've read this in a few books, and they talk about the importance of having a teacher, actually. And I think they actually warn against basically not having a teacher and studying on your own and only focusing on learning Islam on your own. But I think there is a trend, especially maybe people who just start practicing, or maybe people who accept Islam. They think, no, I don't need to associate with anyone because Islam is so pure. It's just Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. There's no saints or anything, and they apply the same mentality to teachers. They think, oh no, I don't want to be a bit Sufi. I don't want to follow a tariqah or something. But I think it's difficult for them sometimes to differentiate. Do you know what I mean, Sheikh?
Yeah. I mean, you can't. You need a teacher. You need a guide. You need someone that's going to direct on how to study, what to study first, what's the methodology in studying. Check your understanding. Ask, and stuff like that. It's essential. It's essential. And I'd extend it not just with regards to a teacher to teach you Islam, but also to mentor you in your decisions that you make in your life. Career decisions, personal development decisions, choices with regards to marriage, stuff like this. So it's not just specific to Islam. You need to have someone that you consult who's older than you, more experienced, been through the things you've gone through, and you're able to get not make mistakes, because you've got someone that's made the mistakes and he's learned from them and he's now reached the level, especially, for example, you can see he's a role model, he's got some achievements. It's so important for the young people to have that. If they don't have that, then they're going to waste a lot of years. A lot of years get wasted doing things that they can miss, because if they've got a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a guide, someone that's older than them to kind of direct them. And this is so important. I mean, obviously in the Muslim countries, it's there. Elders respect their elders. They go back to their elders. They have the chief of the tribe. Everything goes through him and stuff like that. I'm not saying make it like it's a taqleed thing, but consulting someone that's older than you is very important. Very important. Someone that's especially in that field. So, for example, if you're going into a certain type of business, find someone in that field and consult them and let them be your mentor for a couple of years, so you can learn the ropes through them, basically. And this applies to the dunya as well as the deen.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, some of these people they have these mentors that they pay thousands of hundreds of thousands to like mentor them in their business and their their goals and everything. And subhanAllah, it's the non-Muslims are doing it. They understand the concept. The Prophet said he would consult his non-Muslim like family, basically, right? Who are in positions of power, who had experience. So so.
Alhamdulillah. There's a couple of comments on my Facebook page, my personal one. One is with regards to marriage. AbdulWahid, he's it's quite a personal one. So what I've done is I've tagged you in the post, in the comment, so you can reach out to him and give him some advice privately, inshallah. But there's another comment by our brother Feroz from New Zealand. Really good comment, brother Isa. We must study under a teacher. So I think there's just following on the comment from there. We're going to wrap up the show now, inshallah. AbdulWahid, have you got any final words that you would like to share with the viewers before we go over to brother Jamal, who's going to give us our health and fitness advice for the night?
And also, just to add to that, if you can just let us know a little bit more about your the Medina Institute, did you say, AT? Was that something? Yeah, please, if you let us know a bit more about that as well.
Okay, Bismillah. First of all, alhamdulillah, I'm glad it's going to end on health and fitness. Jazakallah khairan, Jamal. I think one of the things that we lack as a community, which was there in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is training, is looking after stuff. So we live a very sedentary lifestyle, from the door to the car, sitting down in the office. There's not much exercise, and sometimes you think, okay, well, I can't go gym, I can't do this, I can't. There's all these can'ts. You see what I'm saying? Those can'ts need to be removed. Islam, you're supposed to look after your body. You're supposed to look after your health. A third for eating, a third for breathing, a third for drinking, for example. Don't overeat. Don't eat too much. Eat the foods which are described that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to eat, and the foods which are described in the Quran and the Sunnah. They're all healthy. They're all healthy foods. They have benefits, health benefits. There's a Sunnah of wrestling. So I think that's really important, especially in this a month of Ramadan on lockdown, that we don't neglect the importance of our physical health and because it has an impact on your mental well-being. I'm sure Jamal knows, and more than anyone else, that's his speciality. So the mental well-being is important when you're on lockdown. You're indoors a lot. Exercising helps that. But I think what I want to say is, pretend this month of Ramadan it's a different month for everyone, not just in the UK but globally. It's a different type of Ramadan, and the funny thing is, it's a Ramadan which is different because we're missing the masjid, but also in a way it's a kind of, if you look at it as a kind of i'tikaf that you're forced to do. You're forced to spend more time with yourself, and by doing that you're forced to reassess your iman, reassess your life, reassess what you're doing, reassess your relationships with your family members. When you're if you're at home all day with your kids and with your wife, you're able to now reassess everything for the better or for the worse, whatever. You might find yourself, hold on a minute, this is not how I imagined everything to be. This is not really what it should be. You get what I mean? So you want to make changes for yourself, because you can only change yourself. You can only advise someone else to change. For yourself, you can only change. You only have control over changing yourself. And so I think this is worth taking this opportunity to put yourself in a type of i'tikaf where you're secluding yourself more away from, for example, your phones or work or social media, whatever it is, and really use this opportunity, because you won't get it again, inshallah. Inshallah, once this pandemic goes, everyone's back to the hustle and the bustle of fast life in the UK. There's no time to do stuff. It's not like, for example, the Middle East, where you got these kailulas in the afternoon, you can come chill out with your family, and you know what I mean? You're out all day working, hustling, grinding, trying to make a living for your family. Your wife's at home all day looking after the kids. It's a bit non-stop. So I think for these next 15, 16 nights, however long is left of Ramadan, I say really try look at i'tikaf from the meaning, not the i'tikaf of the Shari'i meaning, which is where you go into the masjid, but i'tikaf from the seclusion to draw close to Allah by doing things which are acts of ibadah and avoiding every type of thing which is displeasing to Allah. So this is something which I think is an opportunity that if you miss it, you won't see it again in this time, inshallah.
Beautiful. And Jazakallah khair for that. And the Medina Institute?
Yeah, our Medina College is in, we have a college in Southwest London. Inshallah, hopefully we'll have one in Newcastle sometime soon. But even if we don't realize that anytime soon, inshallah, we've got a portal online which has been launched, which has loads of courses at every level. So Arabic courses for beginners, Arabic courses for intermediate students, Quran Tajweed courses, courses on Tawheed, on fiqh, on all the various different sciences as well. So that's, I think, over 200 lessons are online at the moment, and it's constantly been updated. And inshallah, I think the most important thing for, I guess, for everyone is dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq in whatever you're doing. That Allah gives you tawfiq and makes it something which is pleasing to Him, and makes it a means of reward in the afterlife as well as benefit in this worldly life. So that's the most important thing.
Brilliant advice, and I definitely recommend everybody log on to that link and check out what's available. Right, Jamal, you, bro, health and fitness.
So Sheikh AbdulWahid, before I start, disclaimer here. Whoa, I'm not a specialist at all. That's definitely not the case. What I've explained to the viewers over the last few days and weeks is that basically I'm just like everybody else. I'm on a journey trying to keep fit. So what I'm trying to do is motivate everyone else, and by doing that, it helps to motivate myself. So we've gone through quite a lot of things in terms of like encouragement to try to keep a regular routine of exercise. Today, what I was thinking about was that there are many people who are starting to exercise in groups, right? So, you know, they're in contact with their friends and just saying, what did you do today? And stuff like that, which is really good. It's very encouraging. However, there's a certain thing. We know there's healthy competition, right? Everyone likes to have a bit of healthy competition. What do you do today? Oh, I did 50 press-ups. Oh, I did 60. Oh, I did 80. And it's quite good. It gives you a little bit of a push. However, what happens after a while is if you start to slack a little bit, or if you have your limit and other people are starting to exceed and, you know, they're doing really well, it can be very off-putting. And what will happen is after a while, you find it a bit daunting, and you sort of get, you know, you kind of get a bit down, and you start to train and exercise less because of it, because you start to think, no, I can't reach them. So a very important tip for today is that the only one you should be really competing with is yourself. So always try and go for your own personal best. So it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, what the limit is of your body is happy with it, and your body is going to start to change because of it. So don't worry about what the next person is doing, only worry about what you're doing and improve it on a daily basis. And that is really something which you'll start to see the difference, inshallah. So that's today's tip.
Jazakallah khair. Jamal, as usual, alhamdulillah. So that's the end of the show for today. Who have we got tomorrow? Tomorrow we have Sheikh Mohammed joining us tomorrow. Sheikh Mohammed from Jordan, from London, living in London. So he'll be with us tomorrow, inshallah. So we'll end the program there, and we'll be back at the same time tomorrow around midnight, inshallah, tomorrow evening. So make sure to tune in. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Take care and stay safe.